Welcome into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell here live on a Thursday. And
Live on a Thursday.
Yeah, a little
Thirsty
different for
Thursday.
us today. Yeah, not our normal recording day, but hey, we're back at it. And NBA draft tonight, Jell. You tuning in for that at all?
We'll see. I mean, probably not for the whole thing. I do want to see, obviously, as a Badger fan, where does Johnny Davis
JD
end up?
Action.
Old JD. Also, I mean, Keegan Murray, Iowa. See kind of where he ends up. There's talk about him being top 4, top 5, which would be pretty cool. I mean, he had a stellar season this year. Shot, I believe, 39% from 3, which is pretty good for a college player, considering you can always shooting is the one thing, athleticism generally doesn't improve when you turn pro, but shooting usually does. So, I mean, we've seen LeBron go from, when he first came into the league where he didn't even shoot the ball. He just would drive freight train straight to the rack. And now he shoots a pretty good amount of threes and at a pretty good clip. I mean, he's no Steph Curry, obviously. Nobody is in the history of the world, but, But LeBron's a much more efficient shooter. So if you're coming into school or coming out of school into the league, shooting nearly 40% from 3, that's obviously a good sign that you've got a stroke. So I think I could see him climbing up inside that top 5 for Keegan Murray, which is exciting. And then obviously Johnny Davis. We'll see if he drops out of that top 10 or if he stays. He's been kind of hovering around that number 10 mark. So
yeah, I was gonna say, I think the mock I saw today had him going 10 to the Washington Wizards. So
I put a little quiche down on him being over 10.5, so 11 or later. So we'll see how this pays off. But one of the things that knowing that the draft is tonight, one of the things that got me thinking about thinking back about college basketball a little bit, and everybody hates the NIL at least the traditional media seems to hate the NIL and the transfer portal and, all the old heads of this isn't the tradition and this, why isn't room and board enough? Like, whatever. But, I think that this, and with NIL being present now and basically a free-for-all, this might be the best thing for college basketball since one and done, or since, players couldn't go straight to the NBA from high school, because now there's going to be a lot less players, I think, that may not leave early, may not leave after year 1. If they're maybe a borderline first-round pick or even a top 15 pick, knowing that you're not going to be killing it money-wise right away year 1 in the NBA anyways, why not go back to school, get a little bit of cash, get some NIL money? You look at that the center from UNC who was putting up 20 points, 20 boards.
Tyler Hansborough?
This past year.
Oh,
that big MFer in the middle of the paint, putting up 20 and 20 all tournament long. I can't remember his name, but he came back to school and he could have been a lottery pick probably. So maybe maybe that NIL deal, maybe he did get an NIL deal and that led him to coming back. We also got to bring up Big Timmer. And he had a chance to go to the league too. So, and he decided to come back. Now with that mustache, I can't imagine he's not getting a nice payday.
Oh, big time.
But what long story longer. I really think that this is going to lead to more players hopefully sticking around an extra year, maybe 2 years, rather than 19 years old, I'm eligible for the draft, I'm going to go and maybe end up being a second round pick and in the G League, before year 1 even starts. So I think this could be a really good thing for college basketball.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. And especially like you said, if you're not a lottery pick, you're more than likely probably flirting with that 5 spot in your starting rotation on an NBA roster. And a lot of times those guys even have to prove it then. And like you said, G League action and different things like that. And a lot of the guys that go second round are end up in Europe a few years later too. So it gives guys a chance to start making money, stay in college, maybe refine their game a little bit, get a little bit higher draft pick, and be a lot more exciting for college basketball, especially when you get used to a guy and see a guy just balling out his freshman year and then he leaves for the NBA. It'd be pretty cool to see them coming back to school and bringing a little more excitement too.
I mean, go back to like Tim Duncan back in 98. I think he was either 98 or 99. He was a 4-year starter at Wake Forest. He could have went out early, but he comes into the league and right away he dominates. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I would like to see college basketball get back to, because right now it takes 4 years for anybody to really 3-4 years for anybody to really click in the NBA when they come out when they're 19, because they're 19-year-old kids for playing against professional adults that have been, I mean, what do you expect? So I hope that this helps college basketball, and it probably won't ever return back to the days of like Patrick Ewing and those guys, but hopefully it gets a little bit better. We'll see.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely see. And again, we're about a year removed from NIL now. I think it was summer last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's about right. It was basically when. Oh, shoot. We should probably let me see if I can find the date of when Quinn Ewers signed with Ohio State, because he signed like right after that NIL was legalized.
Yep.
Why don't you do the intro and I'll look that up.
Sounds good. Yeah. Before we get the intro, just a very quick hitter for question of the day, since we talked about the NBA draft a little bit here to begin the show. We're going to be talking a little redraft fantasy today. That's kind of the meat and potatoes of the episode. And just kind of want to know general consensus from you, Gel. Are you a fan of stacking as far as quarterback, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end? Do you look for that when you're in a draft? Kind of just, if it happens, it happens. Not a fan of the stack at all. Where do you sit in that?
It's more, I guess, if it happens, it happens for me. It's not necessarily something I target actively. Mm-hmm. Probably, I wouldn't. For example, I wouldn't want to overreach for a player to create a stack. If I drafted Devontae round 1, I don't want to reach for Derek Carr when I probably, when I can I know Devontae is going to put up numbers. Yep. I don't, and having Derek Carr, yeah, that's nice for the weeks that they break out. But ultimately, like, I don't know, quarterback doesn't tend to be that much enough of a difference breaker for me either. And if your wide receiver also has a shitty week, that means your quarterback probably had a shitty week. So it's a real like boom bust thing. It's a very, very good strategy for daily fantasy.
Yeah.
Because to win any money in those leagues, you really need to take a lot of risks and hope that all those risks end up paying off. So that's where a stack is. You have to stack, basically, if you want to have a chance to win some cash. But for weekly fantasy, or for a full season long fantasy or dynasty, especially dynasty, I wouldn't really focus on a stack. But if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to necessarily shy away from it either. So if somebody falls to me and there happens to be a stack, let's say I take Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen happens to fall back to me, I'm not going to be afraid to take Josh Allen. He's also the overall QB1 going into the season, most likely. But you get my point, where I'm not going to, again, long story short, if it happens, it happens, but I'm not shying away from it or chasing it.
Yeah, no, you have my exact opinion on it. If it happens, it happens. But that's one thing when you're in your fantasy drafts, don't reach, because there's chances are you could end up missing out on another great player for reaching for that quarterback later on in the draft. So, but no, if it happens, it happens. If somebody falls to you and you're like, oh, well, this is perfect, this is right around their ADP where they're going, by all means, go for it. But yeah, definitely do not reach for them. That is for sure.
Quinn Ewers signed his $1.4 million deal on August 31st. So
Oh, wow.
we're
Okay.
approaching the 1 year mark.
Okay. Another month or two.
That 1.4 mil was over 3 years. So I wonder if that's going to carry over to UT and he'll still have, I mean, it was a sports marketing deal. I don't see why it would have to be, only if you play at Ohio State, though. Maybe it is. That would kind of suck for him, though. Maybe he would have stuck at Ohio State if it didn't transfer.
Speaking of Texas, a quick note today, Arch Manning officially committed to the University of Texas. So the nephew of Peyton and Eli and son of Cooper, the forgotten Manning brother.
But, Fox, the Fox pregame show certainly didn't make him so forgotten, even though I hate the Manning hour that lasts about 2 minutes. I always thought it was the stupidest thing, but I know who Cooper Manning is now.
Right. No, he was a standout wide receiver and played at Ole Miss for a little while before he got injured. But no, it's been a highly anticipated announcement. I mean, pretty much since last 2 years, everybody's been wondering what's been going on with
since
it,
he was a freshman or sophomore in high school. Probably since he was a freshman in high school is when the buzz really started, because he's still he's got class of 2023, I believe, right?
Next fall.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting too. Like you said, Quinn Ewers there, two highly ranked quarterbacks, and obviously you can only have one quarterback on the field.
Both were number one in the country when they at time of signing. So interesting indeed.
Yes,
number one, Ewers was the number one overall player in the 2021 rankings. I don't know if Arch is also number one overall or just for the position, but
number one overall.
Goodness gracious, UT, don't screw this up.
Right. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook. Search Dead Arm Sports will be the first thing that pops up. Again, we are live for sure, usually on Mondays, and then kind of depends on the rest of the week. But if you subscribe and click the bell on our YouTube page, you will know exactly when we drop for recordings. So that way, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. You'll know when we go live. Keep an eye on that chat throughout our entire recordings. That way, if you have any questions, just type it into the chat and we'll answer it live on the podcast, or else we'll try and get to it, or at least get you an answer by the end of the show. Gel can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Send us any questions, comments, concerns you have about the show. We'll hit you right back or answer them on our next podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that review. Get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. All right, Gel. Before we get into the news today, what are you sipping on?
I figured it'd been a week since I went bush fishing, so had 7 days. That's had to bring it back. So a little bush latte.
Attaboy. I am sipping on a High Noon peach. So
Nooner.
Hardly know her. Speaking of alcohol. Somebody that is notorious for partying and drinking alcohol, Mr. Rob Gronkowski announced his retirement. So congrats, Gronk. A hell of a career. Is it for real this time, Gel? He's already retired once and came back. What are the odds you see him back in a Bucs uniform halfway through the season?
Well, his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, right after Gronk posted his retirement note, said that he would bet if Tommy called him later in the season, said, and hey, Gronk, let me throw you some tutties, that he would come back. So he didn't do that voice. I hope not.
Yeah, hopefully
tutties,
not.
Bro, tutties. That he would, he thinks that if Tom called him and was like, look, playoff push, let's go, that he probably would. The Vegas odds right now on if Gronk stays retired, if Gronk returns, yes, minus 500, no, plus 350. So Vegas odds are heavy on yes, he is going to return. So you can bet on anything, I guess.
Yeah.
But I really, that's about what I wrote down. But is he really retired? So no, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if week 8, Tom calls him and says, "Tutties, bro, tutties," and that's he's back. I mean, the guy's still in great shape. I watched this highlight clip that Adam Schefter posted the other day. It was a highlight clip of Gronk in his heyday in New England.
Just a monster.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, I can't believe that I'm alive that a person can do this to other professional NFL players. Like, it's insane to me what he was doing.
What was really funny about watching that highlight package, I could have sworn there was at least 5 or 6 highlights in there that I was watching that game going up against him in fantasy, because I saw the highlight and it just all of a sudden brought back terrible memories of me getting super pissed off at the TV. So especially that Colts highlight, the one where he catches it on the sideline and then like breaks like 3 tackles on his way into the end zone. I believe he had 2 or 3 touchdowns that game. And I was going up against one of our league members. I think it was former podcast host Rick at the time. I think
Rick had him when he was like at his best.
Yeah, and that was a Sunday night game, if I'm not mistaken, and that was the only player left in our matchup. And I was up by a pretty healthy margin, but Gronk came back and sealed the dub for Rick. So yeah, that one still burns a little bit. But no, congrats, Gronk, somebody that absolutely transcended the tight end position to what we know it now. I mean, there really wasn't a ton before him other than maybe like Tony Gonzalez, some of those guys. But I mean, Gronk just hit the scene and just absolute monster numbers and just an absolute game changer for not only the NFL, but for fantasy football too.
I mean, he's the best, one of the top blocking tight ends that can also receive. Him and Tony Gonzalez are both great blocking tight ends and receiving tight ends, but Gronk had a different level of power than Tony Gonzalez did. So I give it to him as hands down the best tight end of all time. Just different level of domination.
Yep.
But let me kick off a Gronk related topic that, his retirement got the juices flowing a little bit, got the blood flowing a little bit, and that's going to bring me to a new segment and a one-time only segment called that I'd like to call the Dead Arm Sports Partiers Hall of Fame. There's currently 4 members in that Hall of Fame. Some may join as we get deeper into the show as things continue to trend on. But I'm going to start off with number 4. Dennis Rodman.
All right. I was hoping I was going to add him to the list if he wasn't already. So that was the one I wrote down.
we saw in the MJ documentary, that 10-part ESPN series, middle of the playoffs, he just had to take a 48-hour break, go to Vegas, get his party on, hang out with Carmen Electra, and just go to town. I can't believe that the Bulls allowed that, but they won the championship for the 6th time in 9 years. So that includes the 3 years that MJ took off in the middle of those 2 3-peats. So yeah, I guess whatever the formula was, it worked. And it's kind of like if Dennis needs to go, Dennis can go do his thing, get it out of his system. He'll come back 100% rejuvenated. Maybe have a little bit of white powder still in his blood for a little extra energy and some nose clams. And it evidently worked. Number 3, Gronk.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, got him in the top 3 here. I mean, we've all seen the videos, him on that Bud Light party boats, yachts and everything. The video, him and Tom Brady playing catch with the Lombardi trophy over
Tequila
the boat. Tequila Tom. He really does need to come out with his own tequila line. I know LeBron has one. Tom needs to get on that. But yeah, obviously we've seen all the videos and him just crushing brews for days. Number 2, Wade Boggs. I was debating between Jeter, because we've heard stories of, him at his, it was effectively like a Playboy mansion. I mean, not to that level, but just celebrities. And you have to come into the party, leave your phone at the door in a basket, leave all your shit, like no photos. This is all like this. What happens at Jeter's house stays at Jeter's house, which is pretty legendary. I also consider Darryl Strawberry, known for his cocaine usage, very heavy back in the 80s, along with pretty much that entire Mets team, him and Doc Gooden and that squad. But I have to go Wade Boggs here at number 2, given that there were teammates that were saying on cross-country flights he would drink 50, 60 beers on a flight. I don't know how that's possible.
That's insane.
But there's multiple accounts that are saying that he would sometimes do that and eat a whole chicken and drink like 50 beers on a flight, a rotisserie chicken. I don't know how that's possible. If that's possible, I hope that they had an extra large tank for the bathroom, because I'd be pissing every 10 seconds. But Wade Boggs, everybody. And number 1, you know who it's got to be. Ripping heaters out on the golf course, hitting tee shots off his brews, John Daly. What do you think?
No, it's a good list. That is a pretty good list.
That was a fun one. Had to hit each different sport. I was tempted to see if I could dive into soccer. I just don't know enough. I mean, I'm sure Ronaldo has some pretty nuts partying stories.
Probably.
Well, I would think
most athletes and famous people probably do.
Yeah.
So, another football honorable mention, Johnny Manziel.
I almost did, but I almost put him in, but I decided not to because he's like an actual alcoholic. Yeah. So I was like, does that count as partying? Not really.
Borderline.
Yeah, borderline.
No, absolute fantastic list. And we're going to get into our fantasy football list here. We're going to go through for redraft purposes. Joe and I are going to list
allegedly an alcoholic.
Yes. We're going to go through 3 players that are trending up right now for the fantasy football season or at least are trending up on our boards, and 3 players that are trending down. Joe and I have not shared the list, so hopefully we have 6 different players for each category, but we will find out. Jell, you want to kick us off with a player that is trending? We'll start with up. We'll get the good news out of the way.
I wish I kicked it off with a kicker, but didn't even think about that. Harrison butt kicker. I'm gonna start it off with Saquon Barkley. I mean, from the sheer fact that it can't get much worse. I mean, the last 2 seasons, obviously, fighting that injury bug. And then, but even when he did play, if you did put him into your lineup, you got almost Zippo out of him. You got, so new coaching staff hopefully knows how to use him a little bit more appropriately. Additionally, they did make three picks on the offensive line. At number 7, Evan Neal, the tackle out of Alabama. He was my favorite offensive lineman to come into this draft. There were rumors of him going number 1 potentially overall to the Jags early on in the mock draft season. So for them to be able to get him at 7, I mean, he's an absolute beast. This dude can, I'll share on Instagram and Twitter this video of him doing these box jumps that I think are like a good 4 feet off the ground. And he's like 350 pounds. So this guy's jumping ridiculous athleticism. So he's, that addition at number 7 for the Giants, I think is going to help Saquon and hopefully the rest of that entire offense. They also took a guard in round 3 and another in round 5. So, right now, some of these early, I mean, obviously way too early fantasy rankings from different websites that you can look at online have him kind of hovering in that 14, 15, 16 14, 15, 16 ranked running back. So really a middle of the pack running back. I don't think he'll ever, I mean, he's obviously never going to reach RB1, RB2 overall status like he was a couple of years ago. But I think that middle of the pack of all the running backs is a little too low. I could see him being a top 10, return back to that top 10 running back spot.
He's somebody too that's burned a lot of people the last few years. So especially for redraft, you might end up seeing him slip a little bit, which I'd definitely take a chance on him then because you have a ton of upside with him. So no, I like that pick. My first one is somebody that usually finishes in the top 12, top 15 for wide receivers every year, but he's somebody that's not really a sexy pick. He's not one that you're like, hell yeah, I just got him, but it's Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been super consistent when it comes to production his entire career. Yeah, you might have a game here and there where you put up 3 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he still gets you.
Literally did that.
Yes.
Literally did that.
Yes, but he's super consistent. He's somebody that you can probably get there in the second round, maybe sometimes even in the early third round. And my biggest reason why he's trending up for me right now, Chris Godwin is going to be questionable to start off the season and maybe even miss a few games at the beginning of the season. Gronk just retired. You've got that rapport with Tequila Tom. So I really, really like Mike Evans this year, especially if you can get him second, third round to be somebody consistent you can put into your lineup week in and week out.
Yeah, Mike Evans, in all 8 of his seasons, it's crazy to think he's been in the league already 8 seasons. Yeah. I don't know. That's weird to think about, but he's broken that 1,000-yard mark in all 8 seasons of his career. He's the only player to do that, to reach, to get 1,000 yards in his first 8 seasons. So the consistency is obviously there. Yeah, he does have some bust games, but he also has some boom games. Yep. And it all, end of the season tends to level out. So he's still got Brady.
Yep.
So I'm there with you there. I'm gonna stick with that wide receiver position. Your boy, Allen Robinson.
All right.
I obviously his last couple seasons in Chicago, especially last year with Justin Fields there, they just could not click. But his talent is still there. We saw the numbers that he was able to put up early in his first year with Chicago, and then his couple seasons in Jacksonville where he was strong. We also have seen so he's now moved on to the LA Rams. They've been able to support, even when it was Jared Goff there, they were able to support 2 wide receivers really well between Kupp and Robert Woods. And then once Odell came over last year, you saw an instant spike in production from Odell Beckham. So Allen Robinson is going to jump into that wide receiver 2 role in LA. Yeah, Cooper Kupp is still going to get his 120 plus receptions, I'd bet. But Allen Robinson should be good for, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 85 for 1,000 yards and 6 scores, something like that, which would way surpass anything he's done over the last 2 years in Chicago.
Yeah, this is the first time in his career he's actually had a good quarterback throwing him the ball. So
yeah,
I definitely think, he's
Bortles
definitely somebody that falls into that Saquon category too. That's somebody that's probably burned a lot of people. They see the name out there and they're just like, ugh, he was terrible last year. But you had Justin Fields learning the system. For whatever reason, the Bears just kind of seem to forget about Allen Robinson, who outside of David Montgomery has been their best player the last couple of years. So I really like him in LA this year as well. And we'll see what's going on there, especially Robert Woods moves on. So Allen Robinson slots right into that wide receiver 2 role. And obviously cornerbacks have to line up against Cooper Kupp. That's the main focus on person to shut down. So should see a lot of production from Allen Robinson. My next trending up player is also a wide receiver that is in the Mile High City, and that is Mr. Courtland Sutton. And Russell Mania, that is why. Russell Wilson is there now, and Russell Wilson's going to want to throw the ball around. Granted, they do have Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams there, but I think you're going to finally get to see Russell open up the playbook a little bit, and Courtland Sutton is by far the most talented wide receiver on that team, and I really like him this year. Granted, Jerry Jeudy is also there, Tim Patrick, but Courtland Sutton, I think, is going to be the main weapon, main target for Russell Wilson, can slot into that role of DK Metcalf, catch some deep balls, catch some over the top. And I like Courtland Sutton. We had predicted him breaking out a little bit last year, and I think we were just a year too early. The
That did
quarterback
not
situation
happen.
was an
Yeah.
absolute mess, but Cortland
Teddy
Sutton
two
is
gloves, Teddy
yes.
2 yards.
Yes, but Cortland Sutton's somebody that I would definitely like to target, especially probably, I don't know, what round do you think he's going in right now? Probably mid rounds. It's probably jumping up a little bit just with the
I would
with
think
the hype,
it's jumping up. Probably. I mean, I would say higher than mid rounds by quite a bit. I would say
like 4 or 5.
I was thinking like probably late third or fourth. Maybe late third's that's probably early, but I'd say probably, maybe maybe fourth, early fifth. That's probably about right.
Yep.
Where would you then slot? I mean, you could use the same logic for Judy as well, assuming Judy actually like can catch the ball. I mean, which that's been an issue for him.
That's
so
important
far.
for a wide receiver to do.
I think so. I mean, where would you, how far down then do you put Judy in comparison to Sutton?
We've seen Sutton do it before. He's had productive years. What was it? 3 years ago before that ACL pre-ACL. Yeah. So we've seen him do it before. Jerry Jeudy, we haven't. Jerry Jeudy, the hype has always been there, was a phenomenal wide receiver at Alabama, but just hasn't done it yet in the NFL. So I would probably be comfortable with Jeudy in maybe like the 8th round, maybe. I was going to say late 7th, 8th
that's
round,
probably
maybe.
7th.
It's kind of that range where you're just kind of taking a chance on a wide receiver or a running back in hopes that either the running back is somebody that is pretty talented but stuck behind somebody else. You're hoping on an injury, or else it's kind of that range with the wide receivers where you're just kind of taking a chance on somebody that you're hoping to have a breakout season. And Jerry Jeudy could definitely have a breakout season with Russell Wilson there. I mean,
Russ has been able to support. I guess it's just who does Russ focus on? Is it going to be Jeudy, or is it going to be Tim Patrick as his number 2? That's the big wild card, because he was obviously able to support 2 in Seattle with DK and Lockett. So is he, I guess, let's say Sutton's the automatic wide receiver 1. Who takes the reins as wide receiver 2? It's a pretty even toss up, I would say, right now between those 2 guys. May come down to training camp and who he clicks with.
Yep.
I'm going to go back over to the running back position, and let's hop over to the Northeast, up into Philadelphia, where I've got Miles Sanders as a guy that I know you were down on him last year, and you were spot on. Rick was also down on him last year and was spot on. I was extremely discouraged when I heard that, because he was one of my keepers for our Dynasty League. But you guys were right. I was wrong. And but
wait, can you say that again?
I think we got it on tape.
Okay.
Where jealous was wrong. No, but really, when Philly early on in the season, they started off real rough, losing way too many games that they should have won. And they were passing the ball a lot. I think they really wanted to see what they had in Jalen Hurts, in his arm. And it was also Nick Sirianni's first year as a head coach. And he probably wanted to show, this is why you hired me as a head coach. I want to show off, that I'm a good offensive play caller, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's got an ego. So, but it clearly didn't work. Eventually, about mid-season, they pivoted to having a very high percentage of, just ground control type of a game. Play defense, run the ball hard. And it really paid off. They went on a nice run at the end of the season, about the back half of the season. And when they embrace that running game, and I don't see any reason that they need to pivot off that. So I think that they'll probably from day one really want to embrace that running game. And Miles Sanders right now is their most talented back. He may not be a 3-down back. Obviously, they got Kenneth Gainwell there that's ready to catch passes. Same thing, Boston Scott. Those are probably your 3-down backs, or 3rd-down backs. Sorry. But Miles Sanders is going to be a strong, I think, 1st, 2nd down type of back this year. And as long as he can stay healthy, and assuming that they continue to embrace the running game as they did in 2021, I can see Miles Sanders having a nice bounce back. And I personally have him trending up from where he was last year.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because he was definitely somebody that came onto the scene the second half of his rookie year. Kind of was stuck behind, who was it at the time? Was it Jordan Howard? I think it was him, but they've had so many washed
Might
up
be.
running backs there. I feel like that was who
Was
it was.
DeMarco Murray still there?
Oh, jeez.
Chip
Brian
Kelly
Westbrook,
days.
anybody?
Deuce Staley. The deuce is loose.
Gosh. But no, I always will have a tough time drafting Miles Sanders, but he did look good at times last year. And if they can focus on, like you said, getting that run game going to help Jalen Hurts open up the pass, it does scare me a little bit with Jalen Hurts being a fairly mobile quarterback too. But I don't know. Miles Sanders can definitely catch the ball out of the backfield too. So we'll see if he is still out there for some of the passing downs. Obviously, you touched on Kenneth Gainwell. That's pretty much what his specialty was at Memphis in college, was getting the ball out of the backfield and being that passing back. But no, Miles Sanders is definitely somebody to keep an eye on. And another guy, Joe, you've been killing it with ones that kind of burned people the last couple of years for fantasy.
That's
and
it.
You could probably get at a discounted price. So definitely somebody, not reaching to get him, but he's one that you could definitely get into your draft and be like, man, he's still on the board here. Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
worth
this is the
taking
right
a
time
shot?
to take
Probably,
a shot.
because we have seen it from him, where he was, like you said, sweet the second half of his rookie year and just was unable to carry that momentum as far as owners wanted him to, including yours truly.
Yep. My last one is a running back that kind of fits into that category of a backup, but kind of came on a little bit and looked better than the starter last year. Somebody that's down in your neck of the woods, Joe, and that's Mr. Tony Pollard. So,
Yo, boy.
like I said, he looked better than
Tony
Zeke
the
last
Tiger.
year. Zeke looked fairly washed up at times last year, has the last couple of years. You can definitely see that downward trend from Zeke. And Tony Pollard's in a contract year right now too, which I always like having, picking some of the guys that are in that contract year, looking for the next payday. And I don't know if you've heard anything on the radio down there at all, Joe, in regards to this, but the Cowboys, are they planning on locking up Tony Pollard long term? And maybe this is the time. Zeke still have money left. I feel like he's got to be close to where they can cut him, and it's not a huge deal after this season. So he's somebody that, like I said, Tony Pollard has looked phenomenal when he's been able to be their starter, and somebody you can get a little bit later on in your draft that you could potentially have value on a week to week basis too into your lineup.
This would be, there may be a chance that they can let Zeke go after this year. He would, if they cut him after this season, there would still be an $11.9 million dead cap hit that they would have to take on. But that's still less than, that's basically his base salary right now. So today, but this year, his dead cap number would be 30 million.
Yeah, that's not happening.
So they're not cutting him. They're not cutting bait on him yet. But next year, they may have a potential out. That number drops in half if they hang on to him after next season. So going into 2024, that number reduces dramatically. I think it'd be smart for Dallas, though, to see if they can lock Pollard up after. I mean, I would say do it now. Yeah. Before, because this season, I would imagine Cowboys are trying to win a title. They have to be in win now mode. And if Pollard's the better option, which he showed last year that he was, they probably need to ride him more and maybe just keep. My only concern is with Pollard, if you've got both Pollard and Zeke, with the Cowboys, they've got Pollard and Zeke, is that Zeke may be the one at the goal line stealing some tutties from TP. So that's my only concern. But we saw all last year when they were in the middle of the field, Tony Pollard was the way more dynamic player. And I think that if the Cowboys are smart, which that's questionable at times, they should probably try to lock him up now, because if he shows this season what he did last year, I think he'll be in for a pretty nice payday after this season in free agency. So we'll see if the Cowboys, what kind of move they make, what kind of commitment they show to Pollard.
Well, Joe, we made it through our players trending up without having any repeats. Let's see if we can keep that going for the trending down
Woo-woo.
category. I'll kick this one off, and I'm going to stick with the Cowboys and talk about former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver Amari Cooper up in Cleveland. And
Cooper Manning, Amari Cooper. It's the Cooper hour.
The Cooper hour. Yikes. My biggest concern, I don't necessarily think his production has fallen off at all, but this relies more on what is Deshaun Watson's status. That is going to be key. Obviously, seeing Deshaun have great success with his wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins was a phenomenal fantasy asset when he was in Houston with Deshaun, but how many games is Deshaun going to be around for this year? We just saw he has settled 20 out of 24 of his cases, so 4 are still pending right now. Haven't had any information yet on how long the suspension is going to be, when they're going to suspend him, anything along those lines. And I just don't think Jacoby Brissett can keep him relevant. And he's somebody that I'm going to shy away from in my drafts unless he just starts falling like crazy, and it's just stupid not to pick him, but definitely not somebody I am looking to have on my roster at all this year.
Yeah, I mean, that Deshaun Watson thing is not ending anytime soon. The next guy up is Jacoby Brissett. One of the ladies and she's been kind of the face of this. She was kind of started this movement of this lawsuit. Ashley, I don't have her last name off the top of my head, but he sent her, she started crying after during one of the sessions, and he sent her a text later apologizing. So that's an admission of guilt. If you're, sending apology text for doing something like that, I don't think that this is going to work out too well in Deshaun's favor, at least in that particular civil case. She's one of the 4 that has not settled. There's 3 others. She's kind of the face of this. And if she's not settling and more stuff continues to come out, it's just going to continue to spiral downward for Deshaun Watson. I think there's a pretty good chance that you're looking at a full year suspension with Deshaun. It was a little bit questionable. I've been personally saying, just NFL, get it out of the way, start it a year, make it indefinite with a 12-month minimum or a 17 game minimum that he's suspended for. I say start there, but leave it out indefinite. I've been saying that for, I don't know, probably months now at this point, because we've been talking about it for so long. I think this is becoming a lot more realistic that he does end up, though, with a full year suspension, especially the more details that continue to come out. All this stuff's going to be public. It may be behind closed doors and no media allowed, but the details always generally end up coming out. I don't know. I mean, Cooper's still going to be a fine player, but what do you trust? How much do you trust Jacoby Brissett? That's going to be... Or do you have more faith in, or do you think that Deshaun will only get a 4-game suspension? If that's the case, he gets 4 or 6 games, then Cooper may fly up your draft board. But Amari Cooper with Jacoby Brissett, don't love it. So I'm there with you for sure. That's an absolute trending down. Let me go out west here, back to the running back position, and I'm going to go with the Niners running back, Elijah Mitchell. He kind of came out of nowhere last year. 6th round pick, wasn't really pegged to be the starter. The thought was that it was going to be, who's the guy that...
Trey Sermon?
No, who's the guy before him until he inevitably got hurt. And then the next guy in line, Raheem Mostert.
Mostert, yep.
And of course he gets hurt per usual.
Shocker.
Yeah. Behind him, it was supposed to be Trey Sermon. Elijah Mitchell jumped him in training camp in preseason. Sermon also showed nothing on the field that deserved him being or that warranted him being a 3rd round pick. But the Niners did draft a 3rd round running back, Tyrion Davis Price. And Shanahan really does like going running back by committee. We saw that when Mostert was healthy. Jeff Wilson Jr. getting plenty of playing time, plenty of touches. Jeff Wilson's also going to be coming back after a full year off of his injury. So he'll probably be in the mix as well. Who knows where Sermon ends up fitting into the fold? I'd imagine he's kind of, a more of a reserve back at this point. But I mean, and then the other thing to factor in here too, Trey Lance, his running ability, that's probably going to be touchdowns taken away from Elijah Mitchell versus last year. So Mitchell did put up some really, really nice weeks when he was healthy. He did miss a few games, but when he was healthy, he was really productive. I just don't see him matching that production next year.
Yeah, and who knows what Debo is holding out, but we'll see what his status is, at least for how they utilize him this year too. So that was somebody else that was taking away some big running plays, and especially inside the red zone or inside 20-yard lines, getting big chunk plays. And but you said Trey Lance, that's the biggest thing for me is Trey Lance. I mean, he ran for a couple in his very, very limited time last year on the field. He still scored, I think, 2 rushing touchdowns. Yep. My next position is going to be quarterback, and somebody that has been highly drafted, sometimes one of the first quarterbacks off of the board in recent years, and lost his 1A or 1B target, and that's Patrick Mahomes. And I just think he's still going to be good for you, but it's just so much production loss from losing Tyreek Hill. You've got a tougher Division II. Chargers have ramped up their defense. Denver's got a phenomenal defense. Raiders are no slouch at all. And I just don't know where that production is going to go. Travis Kelce's still there. Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older as well. So how much does he still have left in the tank? Running back position there is a huge question mark, as always, a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I don't know, where is that production from Tyreek Hill going? Sky Moore, MVS, Juju? You're not going to get the production that you got from Tyreek Hill. You don't have that burner. Nicole Hardman hasn't done it. He's been just garbage pretty much, outside of one, maybe like 50-yard touchdown every 8 games or so, or something maybe like that. Yeah, if that. So I think you're going to see a big drop in production from Patrick Mahomes. He's still going to be solid for you, but I'm not drafting him in the top probably, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 quarterbacks. Where would he fall on your list? I mean, you obviously have Josh Allen that's going to be up there, Herbert, probably, I don't know, Burrow. I'd probably throw Burrow in up there.
Yeah. How do you compare him with, say, Kyler? Assuming Kyler obviously comes back and is in there, because I think game to game, they're probably Kyler's got the upside of the rushing ability.
Yeah.
But there's obviously the injury concern, which has bit him pretty strong.
Yeah. Oh man, that's tough. Then that's probably the 2 guys that you'd be staring at, or at least I would be staring at in a draft for who would be left if I was fighting for quarterback.
Yeah, you obviously throw Herbert up there above both those guys. Big time. I mean, yeah.
Man, that's tough. I'd probably, for fantasy, lean Kyler just for the rushing upside. But again, that's a huge risk for injury concern that obviously we've hammered on that the last year or so on our fantasy podcast, Dead Arm Dynasty. But no, that's why Patrick Mahomes is somebody I've been super high on in the past, but I'm definitely taking a step back this year and hindering some of my expectations.
Is Lamar up there above Mahomes? Is okay. Yeah. So that's big time. I'd say probably 4 is maybe I'd probably put Mahomes 4, Kyler 5, just because of that injury concern on Kyler, and then Lamar at 3. That's probably my top 5 right now. Josh Allen, Herbert, Lamar, Mahomes. God, I don't even know about Kyler. I almost wonder, do you go Burrow up there? I mean, he's got Chase. T. Higgins is continuing to improve. They did lose a tight end, but you still got Mixon.
Yeah.
Maybe you throw Burrow up there above. Maybe you do throw Burrow up there above Mahomes and drop both those guys down a slot. But I actually almost had him as one of mine. I went with a different quarterback, however, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's this one's probably too easy.
Yeah.
But I think that the drop off may be more dramatic than you may realize. I mean, obviously the loss of Devontae, the loss of MVS, who Valdez-Scantling was his number 2 target last year. He lost his top 2 guys. He doesn't really click much with rookie wide receivers. We saw that with Amari Rodgers getting whopping 4 catches last year as a rookie. The drop down is obvious. That, I mean, the trending down is obvious, but I think that he may slide down below the likes of a Kirk Cousins, maybe even a Derek Carr. I think I would put Derek Carr pretty comfortably above Aaron Rodgers right now. So, and Rodgers, again, he's almost 40 now. He doesn't have the same wheels as he probably used to have. So if he's got no wheels and he's got rookie receivers that he's throwing to, or Randall Cobb that he's throwing to, I guess Lazard, but him and Lazard didn't really, they clicked at times, but Lazard's not a number 1 option. So I think that drop down could be pretty far. And I'd say mid to late teens in terms of quarterbacks right now for Rodgers. That's where I see him. I'm not high on him at all.
He usually finds a way to pull out some numbers, but it's going to be tough. Like you said, without Devontae Adams, that's a huge issue there for his passing game. And my number 3 here is Aaron Jones. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Packers here. And I just think I'm very curious on what this offense is going to look like without them. It's not going to be as prolific as it has been in the past. Now, does that translate them more to trying to get that run game going? Are they going to be down more in games or have close games where they're going to try and pass more, where Aaron Jones might not get the touches? So that's why I'm a little hesitant with him. And the other reason is a big reason, and that's big boy AJ
Literally
Dillon,
big.
AJ Dillon was absolutely phenomenal at times. They were pretty much sharing the backfield for the most part. And for being as big as AJ Dillon is, he's a great pass catcher out of the backfield. So Aaron Jones wasn't even just getting all of the passing work. AJ Dillon was still in there for that as well. And guys, huge, break his tackles. Pretty much Derrick Henry for the most part, as far as like bodybuilding and breaking tackles. Not obviously hasn't been as productive as Derrick Henry has been, but no, I'm a little concerned with Aaron Jones. And again, Aaron Jones after this year is pretty much cuttable. He's signed that 4-year extension, but it was front loaded for the first 2 years. So yeah,
his guaranteed money's done after this season.
Yeah. So he scares me a little bit and definitely trending down on my board.
I'm going to stick with that running back position, and I'm going to go out east again to Washington. Antonio Gibson. He had a down season last year in comparison to where we kind of thought he was going to be. I know most of us had, or at least, you and I had him as a very likely breakout candidate. He did not break out. And now bringing in Brian Robinson, running back out of Alabama, 3rd round pick, that's going to only hurt his workload, given that Ron Rivera said he envisions this being similar to his time when he was head coach at Carolina, when they had D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. He envisions that running back or that backfield being similar to that. That was one of the most, if you remember, if you played fantasy back then, if you remember, if you owned either of those guys, you remember how frustrating that was to own either of them, because both incredibly talented guys, both had RB1 potential if they were the lone awesome guy, because when they did get touches, they were sweet. We even saw D'Angelo Williams when he went to Pittsburgh, when he was older. He had just the one season, but he was sick during that one season. I remember because I picked him up. I can't say I'm completely out on Antonio Gibson. He's going to get the majority of the touches, but if Ron Rivera is already saying he envisions kind of having that split backfield. Huge turnoff. It's going to be tough for me to take Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. I've got him in our keeper league, and he's just very frustrating. The hype train has been there since he came into the league. I mean, look at what we were talking about last year during training camp. Ron Rivera comes out and says he wants to use Antonio Gibson in the CMC type of role, and everybody's going nuts like, finally, yes. And then what happens? Fucking JD McKissick is still in there on all the passing downs. And guess what?
All that.
JD McKissick signed with Buffalo earlier this year and then's like, nah, you know what? I want to go back to Washington. And he's back with Washington.
Three-headed backfield now.
He's in there and he's going to be in there for your passing down. So yeah, no, Antonio Gibson, talent is there. Awesome running back. But yeah, there's just too much there right now for his draft position for me to even look his way at this point outside of an injury or something like that to one of those other guys.
100%.
Speaking
Obviously, I agree with myself.
Yes. Speaking of 100%, Joe, there's a 100% chance that Brooks Koepka is now a part of the LIV Golf Tour. So,
I mean, I guess. Good. I'll give it to you.
All right. So, yeah, I got news earlier in the week, pretty much the day after the U.S. Open. Day our podcast came out, the Gel was talking about how Brooks was didn't say no to the LIV when he was asked about it over the weekend, but got the news that Brooks is now part of the LIV Golf Tour.
Where Jealous was right.
Yes. Yes. But no, we both talked on this, so we'll kind of keep this segment short, but not really a surprise at all. I mean, every week it seems like there's more and more guys that end up going over. So are there any guys that are kind of on your radar right now to join him next, or is it just kind of wait and see mode at this point in time?
I feel like he might be, unless somebody like Xander or Vic is a Euro. It seems like there's more European guys that committed to that tournament. Big Dick Vic, Hovland, Small Dick Vic. Jeez, the way he's played. It seems like there's more Euros that have committed to that tour than Americans. But so maybe there's another kind of mid-tier guy, but I don't see a JT, a Rory, a Spieth, that one of those. I don't see another just absolutely massive name going there. I think Brooks might have been the last really big name, multiple major. What does he have? 4 majors?
Yeah.
I don't think there's anybody that's going to have more majors attached to them that's going to leave. But there may be a couple other mid-tier guys that go. I hope not, because it just sucks as a fan to have to now pay attention. Like, we're not going to see just all of the best golfers in one tournament. Now we got to pay attention to
outside of the majors, but
yeah, right.
Well, the PGA came out and countered yesterday. Again, we're recording on Thursday, and came out yesterday and said they're going to increase the purses for quite a few of the tournaments.
Amazing how they can just find that money now.
Yeah, right? No, exactly. They said it's going to end up coming from sponsors.
We got more.
Yeah, but obviously the PGA is scared, and I don't blame them. I mean, you see guys that keep jumping every week, and yeah, no, it's interesting time in the professional golf world. That is for sure.
Big time.
All right, Gel, it is time for our preview. Again, we're recording on Thursday, so first round of the Travelers Championship is in the books. When we get to our picks here, Gel and I did text each other this morning, so those were locked in prior to the start of the tournament. But Travelers Championship, I believe it's out in Connecticut, if I'm not mistaken. But course record a couple of years back, Jim Furyk shooting a 58. So
58, look at that.
Yeah, just absolutely tearing up the course. This is a pretty easy course for the pros, not super long. So a lot of the shorter hitters still in contention. I picked a shorter hitter this week, and he's kicking your golfer's butt so far. We'll get there in a little bit. Can't toot my own horn yet, but some other notables that are in the field this week: Rory is playing, Tony Finau, Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, Xander, Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns. And JT was supposed to play in this one, but withdrew a little bit earlier with a back injury. So it's one of those tournaments, got a pretty decent sized purse, and one that a lot of the golfers play in. But
yeah, nice 8.3 mil That's that purse for this week. Not too bad.
No,
For a tournament right after the US Open.
Yeah.
Which sometimes you sometimes see a little bit of a lull after a major.
Mm-hmm.
Not when this kind of money's out there.
No, not at all. Who were some of the betting favorites this week?
Yeah, I mean, Rory seemed like a pretty obvious favorite. Him and Scotty Scheffler. Those are the two real top guys. Rory, this is to win the tournament. Rory at plus 1,000. Scotty Scheffler plus 1,100. Patrick Cantley at 1,600. Sam Burns plus 1,800. Xander Schauffele 2,000. And then there's that's your top five right there.
Nice, like it. And Rory put money down on him's paying off for you so far. Again, we're recording after the first
it's
round.
Your boy
Leader -8, and
I put a little
right behind it -7.
Little cash on him not to win it, but finish top 10. Figured that was some easy money. So we'll see.
Looking good so far.
Leader at 8 under after one.
Yes, sir. Any long shots you like this week at all?
Yeah, Mark Leishman, the Aussie.
Aussie.
He won it in 2012. Yes, that's a decade ago. But
shit.
That's insane to think about. But he does have a couple top 10 finishes at this tournament. Since then, last year finished third in the tournament at 12 under, finished on Sunday with a 6 under. So some pretty good momentum in this tournament. And on top of that, T14 at the US Open last week, not too shabby. So at plus 5,500, I figured he may have been a guy to take a swing at.
Attaboy. Speaking of taking a swing, we made some picks this week. We've got our locks of the week, and every week, if you're new to the show, Jill and I pick a golfer. We started with the Century Tournament of Champions, and each week we pick a golfer, and whatever their score is relative to par, whether they make the cut or not, that's what score you get. Once you use a golfer, can't use them again and can't use the same golfer as your opponent for the week. So kind of a fun game we've been playing. I've been
getting your ass handed to you.
Yeah, outside of the majors.
The majors, you're doing great. The majors
have been doing okay, so hoping to keep my momentum from the U.S. Open and the sweep in my favor this week. And going with somebody I'd mentioned that the course is relatively short this week, somebody that hasn't been playing a ton of great golf lately, but can put it together, has had some success here as well, just with some better scores. But it's guy from Aiken, South Carolina, Mr. Kevin Kisner. I don't know.
South Carolina.
There
yes, it is.
I was watching a little bit of the featured groups today on ESPN Plus, hashtag not a sponsor, but it was funny. He was paired up in a group with Rory and Webb Simpson. And I could have sworn they were just showing highlight videos of the tournament, like the entire round. Between him and Rory, they were just draining ridiculous putts.
Wow.
Kisner had to have had, I don't even know how many feet of putts that he made today. Well, had to have been well over like 100, 150. It was just insane. Just pouring in par putts, birdie putts. It was fun to watch today. And Rory was doing the same thing, just playing phenomenal. Kisner finished at -3 today. So
Webb Simpson also had a great day, finishing at 6 under, tied for 5th right now. So what a grouping.
Great group. Yeah. Between the combined -17 from the three of them.
That's badass.
Yes. Who do you got this week, Joe?
I went Sam Burns right now, or over the last 24 rounds. He's leading, or he's the number one player in terms of strokes gained via approach shots. Again, you mentioned that this is this course plays a little bit shorter. So that's where approach shots, iron play really comes into play. And given that he's been hot over his last 24 rounds, and the fact that he's been hot really all season, figured I'd finally give him a ride. Number 2 player on the in the FedEx standings right now. So gonna give him a little bit of love, but he's burnsing me right now with a round 1 even.
Yeah, he came back though. He was, I believe, I know for sure he was at +2 at one point in time. I can't remember if he was at +3 at all, but ended up coming on a little bit strong towards the end, knocked down a couple birdie putts to get back to even. So keeps you around that. It's probably going to be what the cut line ends up tomorrow, I would imagine, probably around that even +1, -1, depending on how those morning guys come out shooting. So we'll see. Fun tournament. There's some fun holes to watch, a lot of water on this course. So it's a good time.
Good time.
Speaking of good times, that was a good time, and it is time to wrap up. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Gel can be found at Das Gel. I can be found at Das JPEG. Check us out on YouTube. You can watch our podcast the next day. Otherwise, YouTube Live. Make sure you hit that bell so that way you know when we are going live. You'll get a notification, and subscribe to the page too, so that way you get alerts when our podcast videos drop. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of that review. Get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. Joe, where else can they find us at?
Hit us up on our presenting sponsor, Anchor, both available on the web and via your phone's app store. If you're looking for it on the web, find them at just by searching anchor.fm. Or if you're looking for the app, that is available just by searching Anchor on your Google Play or Apple App Store. They allow us to do all of our editing, publishing, everything, put in our descriptions, everything for free, out to and present this to you guys on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. Make sure to find our YouTube channel. Again, we are currently live. Probably not going to be live when you listen to this show, if you are listening to the pod.
Yeah.
But make sure to hit us up live. We've got that chat box open. We're keeping an eye on that chat box. If anybody has any topics they want to bring up, any questions. So make sure to find us there when we do go live. Go onto that YouTube channel, hit that bell, subscribe to Dead Arm Sports, the channel, and then hit that bell so that you get notifications. Ding. There you go. That was nice.
All right, that'll wrap up this episode. Again, appreciate everybody out there listening. As always, if you could tell somebody you know about the podcast,
subscribe, rate, review, subscribe, yes. Rate, review, and yes, definitely word of mouth. Easiest, best way to spread the word.
Big time. All right, Joe, close us out.
English is important, but fantasy football is importanter.